Hi, everyone. This is Terrence Cheng. I'm Chancellor of the Connecticut State Colleges and University System and host of this podcast, Office Hours. Through candid discussions, Office Hours will explore the intersection of education, leadership, and economic growth. We will hear from state, higher education, business, and industry leaders, as well as students and faculty who will share valuable perspectives that inspire and empower listeners on their educational and professional journeys, and we will delve into the key issues impacting higher education across Connecticut. Joining me today is Chris DiPentima, who serves as the president and CEO of the CBIA. Chris was appointed CBIA's CEO in June of 2020 and previously served as division president of Leggett & Platt Aerospace, which includes Pegasus Manufacturing in Middletown. Prior to joining Pegasus, Chris spent 8 years as an attorney representing corporations and individuals on a broad range of issues. Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
That's great to be with you. Good to see you again.
Awesome. So you and I have gotten to know each other over the past few years. I think we share a lot of values and goals. We want to see great things for Connecticut. We want to see as many assets come together as possible. So you have a lot of experience in the private sector, and you were previously the division president of Leggett & Platt Aerospace, and that includes Pegasus Manufacturing right here in Middletown. And also you worked as an attorney representing corporations and individuals on a lot of different things. So how did all of this background and experience set you up to be as effective and successful as CEO of the CBIA as you can be?
Well, I think the jury's still out as to whether I'm successful, but
I think you're doing okay. I think you're doing pretty okay.
Surrounding myself with just really, really great people, listening to a lot of people along the way. This is a bit of a old home state for me. I used to sit on the industry advisory board for the manufacturing program here at Middlesex Community College, because as you mentioned, my family business is on the other side of town, and back in that day, they used to say there was, Middletown was dominated by the two P's in manufacturing. I like to say Pegasus first and then Pratt & Whitney second. I think it was quite honestly the other way around. And so we were very, very engaged organizations, and just that engagement, that ability to listen to folks, to bring folks together, collaboration, which you do a great job. And I think, that's the core of probably my success along the way is I am not the smartest person. I'm usually the dumbest person in the room.
But I doubt that, but go on. Yeah.
But bringing people together who are really, really smart people and have great ideas and getting them to talk and work through maybe differences to get to, as like you said, we have common goals, common values. And I think it's the case with a lot of leaders across Connecticut, a lot of people across Connecticut.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges, right? Is like getting all those folks in the room and establishing that shared North Star with everyone and really going for that. So you were named the CEO of the CBIA in June of 2020. This is during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I mean, what an incredible, crazy time. But in your estimation, how has our state's economy and the economy overall evolved or changed since then, right? It's been over 4 years now. And how has it changed in terms of how we go about doing business and also cultivating that kind of talent?
Yeah, it was an incredibly weird time to change careers, go from running a Fortune 500 global organization, the company that I sold my business to in 2016, to going to lead a nonprofit in Connecticut. Prior to the pandemic, I was spending 3 weeks a month outside of the state, running other locations, and now spending every day, every hour in the state post-pandemic. Yeah, I think the state has thrived post-pandemic. It obviously was a terrible pandemic, a terrible tragedy, a lot of lives lost. But and I think this, highlighted one of the strengths of Connecticut, our deep relationships and ability to rally together very quickly as a small state. That's one of our strengths. And the fact that the governor and other leaders listen to the private sector, listen to the healthcare providers on what we should and maybe should not do. And, Governor Lamont, to his credit and his team, then a lot of states were considering of shutting down one piece of manufacturing or another and just keeping certain quote unquote essential open. And he deemed all manufacturing essential.
That's
and
right.
I think that was a one of the many great decisions made along the way, as well as the residents rallying around, getting vaccinated and staying healthy.
That's right.
And as a result, we came out of the pandemic faster than a lot of other states.
I think the pandemic indeed was an incredibly difficult time, but it was also a moment, or these were moments where you saw the state really rise up together to try to take care of, big important things together. Can you talk to us a little bit about the talent that you're seeing, or how folks are kind of feeling about the talent pool, maybe a little pre, during, and now after COVID?
Yeah, pre-pandemic, there were some challenges. They weren't as well advertised or discussed as I think they are post-pandemic, and I know you know this. But in the manufacturing sector, we certainly had a retiring older workforce pre-pandemic for, I would say, a good 5 years before the pandemic. The manufacturing sector in Connecticut was talking about the silver tsunami that's going to happen.
Right.
We really need to develop this pipeline. The pipeline kind of got shut down in the 90s. Back then, Pratt & Whitney had an incredible apprenticeship program that they, basically built privately and to such an extent that it overflowed into the supply chain. And so we became less reliant on the education institution and had the private sector. But then, Pratt's business slowed down, and so did that program.
Wow.
But, so then we needed, government education to fill that role. And there was, it started to grow pre-pandemic in the manufacturing sector. As I mentioned, I was here in Middlesex, and that was part of the community college manufacturing program extension. But the pandemic then exacerbated it, I think, for all industries. We had folks retiring earlier than normal retirement age during the pandemic, and that continues post-pandemic. It seems like 62 is now the new 65 or 67, and older demographics in Connecticut and the Northeast. That means we need to backfill them on a one-to-one.
Right.
But at the same time, again, to this rallying post-pandemic, businesses in Connecticut have seen tremendous demand for their products and services.
Right.
And so they're all growing. At the same time, we have attrition happening. So we need a bigger pipeline. And as of today, there's still 93,000 job openings in Connecticut.
Yeah.
About 30-40% more than we had pre-pandemic. So more job openings today, and that goes to that demand. We have about 5,000 unemployed people. And so if we had 0% unemployment, we'd still have 30,000 job openings in Connecticut.
Remarkable.
It's an incredible stat when you think about it. We just don't have a big enough of a supply coming in, and that's why we often, working with folks like you, even the K through 12 system, kids graduating high school, is how can we get that pipeline more robust?
Absolutely.
And then keeping people in Connecticut, keeping especially our young people, but also making the state attractive for people to move to the state to grow that labor force. We have the private sector right now has more people working in it than ever in the history of Connecticut. More than 1.4 million people. Yeah, highest peak ever. And we still have all these job openings.
That's incredible.
And so we just need more people.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's one of the big goals for our system, right? Is to get as many of our students to be educated here, to having career sustaining opportunities here, to live here, work here, and again, just grow here, right? And we need to continue to do as good a job of that as possible. So maybe let's talk a little bit about those specific jobs, or as much about those 93,000 jobs as we can. What do you see in terms of what are the industries that have some of the highest needs? What are some of the highest needs in terms of the skills or the types of employees? Just talk to us about the landscape that you're seeing out there.
Yeah, every industry sector, as I said, kind of pre-pandemic, it was heavy manufacturing focused. Post-pandemic, now every industry sector is looking for employees, and from entry level to the highest skills. So, for example, the food industry, our restaurants and hospitality has about 15,000 job openings. The healthcare sector, the growing, thriving sector here in Connecticut, has about 15,000 job openings. So right there, that's about 30,000 of the 93. Right. Manufacturing still has 9,000 job openings in Connecticut. Yeah. And then when you pull through them, you're talking about all levels of skill set. You think healthcare, doctors, nurses, okay, they need the highest level of degree out there. But when you peel it back, you're talking about some entry-level lab technicians who could just come out with a GED or some type of certification program like you guys are focused on. LPNs, again, a big certification program, not necessarily a bachelor's needed for it. Yep. We have over 1,000 job openings for CDL truck drivers.
Right.
Because the warehousing and logistics industry exploded in Connecticut post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Because Connecticut real estate cheaper than New York and Massachusetts, yet we still have access to the same ports and rails. And with those CDL licenses come supply chain managers, logistics managers. So it's everywhere.
Yeah. But that's an excellent point, right? That it runs the gamut of need. Almost every industry has a high level of need. And we pride ourselves on having the largest entity of higher education. We're the largest in the state, right? 85,000 students a year. So in your estimation, and you can be honest, what should we be doing better, right? Especially in public higher education? What can we do more of? What can we do better? What are we not doing that we should be doing, right? Because we need to really learn from industry and listen to and understand industry as well.
Yeah, it needs to be demand-driven, right? You can't just set up a program and say, I hope someone hires these students when they graduate and hopefully they have the right curriculum experience. The biggest challenge that you've had, and one is it's a big boat that you have to turn around, as you said, the size of it, is unlike pre-pandemic when we were probably insurance-focused and manufacturing-focused, it was less of an industry explosion happening on the demand side. Now, as we just mentioned, it's just broad breadth of demands, and from bachelor's degree and beyond to associate's degree to credentials and certifications to some people just need a high school degree. Yeah. And so the system that we need in Connecticut, and that I think you've done a good job and we continue to build, is one that has lots of on-ramps and off-ramps. Right. An individual can get in, they could go get a job relatively quickly, hopefully, for their own economic purposes. But then as they want to advance in their career, maybe they need a little bit more, they come back in, come back off into that highway, and then they're able to go back off. So that's that system, and it's complicated. It's a very complicated system because the industry sector in Connecticut is so diverse. And when you look at the business in Connecticut, we're the land of small and mid-sized businesses. Right. Some people often think of our 14 Fortune 500 companies in Connecticut, which are Travelers or the Hartford, Lockheed, and Pratt & Whitney and Electric Boat. But when you peel away those 14 Fortune 500 companies, the average business size in Connecticut is about 10 to 11 employees. Right. It's mom and pop. It's small businesses. We're the state of innovators and creators. Yes. And so that creates even more pressure on the higher ed system because you've got to reach those small businesses that are focused on keeping their lights on, keeping their employees happy, keeping their customer happy, making sure the supplies are coming in. Right. And so that we encourage the businesses to connect with higher ed, right? They've got to be motivated too, but at the same time, there's a pressure on higher ed to connect with those businesses that are in every nook and cranny across our state. I completely agree with you. What else can we do to kind of speak the same language as folks in industry? What else can we do to be front and center with them, right? I don't think we're ever going to be perfect, but we should be striving for that. So what else can we just really do to get to the next level for people's awareness so that we can serve them? Yeah, when I look across the country, I still say Connecticut's probably a leader when it comes to industry advisory boards, business informing curriculum. So I think continue to put our foot on the gas on that one. And I'm surprised when I talk to my peers in other states, and like, we're starting to set up industry advisory boards. Geez, we've had that for 15, 20 years in Connecticut. It's amazing. Yeah. And we sometimes take that for granted that we at least are having industry inform the curriculum. And very rarely do I hear from a business that says, I hired a student who graduated from this program. They have no idea what they're doing, and now I've got to retrain them. And quite honestly, with the stress of the workforce right now, businesses are almost just looking for some core basic skills of an individual and are willing to train. And that training happens either internally or businesses are willing to do some tuition reimbursement and send them back into that highway that we talked about. So continuing to make sure that we have curriculum that develops those, I'll call those non-traditional or softer skills that the businesses need in order to have the individual that they can train, right? Problem solving, critical thinking. Sure. And this environment where virtual continues to dominate and probably will for a long time, the ability to work in a team environment, maybe even in a virtual setting, the ability to communicate. It's the younger crowd, and I have 3 daughters, ages 15 to 23. I know everything is kind of phone-based, app-based. That's right. But the ability to communicate in a working group and work together versus always independently. Yeah, I think we need to make sure our curriculum continues to focus on that while, of course, putting in the technical hard skills. And then how and plugging the higher ed system into the K through 12 system. And I know you guys have done a great thing with articulation agreement.
Yes.
We continue, you and I have had lots of discussions about dual credit enrollment.
Yes.
How can we get especially the high school students connected with our higher ed so that they either can accelerate the process or be aware of the process.
Yes.
As you know, we
Absolutely.
still have about a third of our public school students who graduate every year that don't go to 2 or 4 year college or the military.
Yep.
And it's critical with this workforce shortage that we make sure they're plugged in to a pathway program or a dual credit program that at least can get them employed when they graduate high school.
Sure.
If not, get them on that highway system to employment through a certification program, an associate's degree, whatever is the right pathway program.
Yeah, and those are the students that may not think that higher education or any kind of post-secondary is for them, and we got to just do better about being in front of them and making sure that we show them that we're here with open arms, right? We're going to give them everything that they're going to want or need from us if we can. We got to keep doing better with that.
No, you guys are doing a good job with it. And we launched a CBIA foundation about a year ago, which is a 501c3 to complement our membership organization. The sole mission of that foundation is to develop a long-term economic competitiveness plan for Connecticut that we're going to be releasing September 4th at our economic conference. And when we heard the forums that we held, and it was not just the private sector, it was educators, legislators, residents, students. The workforce education piece continues to be one of the key pillars. It was business climate was talked about the most, workforce and education, and then quality of life, which we kind of bucket childcare, housing, transportation, energy costs in there. And in that workforce and education piece, we just heard over and over that we just need a very integrated, connected system, to your point, where that the individual is aware of that system and what it may provide them from career opportunities in college, exploration opportunities, but that the businesses are also aware of that system and able to plug into it. So we're going to have several recommendations in that economic action plan specific around dual credit, more policies to drive internship experiences, apprenticeship experiences, more experiential learning during your academic process. It can't. I think a lot of an individual's workforce process or career exploration is a deselection process as much as a selection process. And if you have experiential learning along the way and work-based learning along the way, they could try something and say, I definitely don't want to do that, and I don't want to do this, and then find their niche. It's not always about finding the thing you like right out of the gate.
Right.
And so if we have more science center school trips and field trips when someone's in K through 6th grade, and then community-based opportunities when they're in middle school, and then high school internships, apprenticeships, opportunity work-based, I think that will set up the system to be incredibly robust and have this on-ramp and off-ramp highway system.
I couldn't agree more. This should be a continuum, and it should be something that's very easily understood that it is a continuum with multiple on-ramps and off-ramps, and it's going to help you throughout your whole life, your whole career, and it's of immeasurable value. So, open-ended question just on purpose, right? Where are some of the biggest opportunities for growth for the state?
Well, solving this workforce challenge, I think the state that figures out the way to plug a bigger supply into the demand that's happening, because all states are struggling with workforce, we hear it in every state, is going to be the state that kind of wins or gets the leg up. So that's going to be a huge thing that we can do in Connecticut. I also, based on, again, on the forums, I'm surprised how kind of complicated Connecticut can sometimes be for a small state with deep relationships.
Sure.
You and I can call the governor anytime we want, can call DCD. And you're only one phone call away from the people who can make the decision. And for such a small state, you think we'd be more flexible and have an ability to make things more streamlined. But when we held these forums, and this wasn't just from the business community, I heard it from educators about state regulations and metrics that make them go one way when they know they really should be educating in another way.
Right.
We heard it from the nonprofits relative to how they're regulated, certainly the business community with environmental and permitting regulations. I think we need to really look at our regulatory environment. And we're an old state, and sometimes you have regulations that just kind of pile on each other, and you never just step back and look at the forest.
Sure.
That's going to be a key recommendation in our economic action plan. What else we can do is just let's look at this regulatory landscape, and is there a way to leverage our small size and deep relationships and get maybe some of the bureaucracy out of the way? And it's no one's fault. Again, it's regulations that have been building for 200 years.
I mean, they don't call Connecticut the land of steady habits for nothing, right? I mean, This is kind of where we are, and we got to continue to work with that. But I hear you loud and clear. I could not agree more. We got to be nimble. We got to be faster. We got to be more streamlined.
I think the state can do a better job tapping into higher ed for some of maybe the research and knowledge that's there, having some of your students look at some of the things and say, okay, here's some things that maybe we should eliminate in Connecticut. I've seen some of those best practices in other states where the state leverages the academic institutions even more.
I agree with you. I feel like all of the assets are there, but it's a game of connect the dots. And once we start to connect those dots, the impact is going to be almost, I mean, it's happening, but it just, can we do it better? Absolutely. Future of the economy, the workforce, what are you seeing in the next, 5 years, 10 years? Like if you're looking into the crystal ball.
I think businesses will continue to embrace innovation, automation, especially if they aren't able to find the workers to support their demand. And I know we've seen a lot of that automation in manufacturing. We've seen AI in the financial and insurance sector. I think we're going to start to see that trend go into those areas where maybe there's lower wages, restaurant, hospitality industry, where again they have some of the most job openings in Connecticut, can't find people. I think you're going to start to see more automation in that kind of entry level, lower wage sector, and we've got to make sure that doesn't squeeze out that individual who's kind of looking for their first opportunity, right? And so if automation and AI are going to kind of be more dominant there, making sure these entry level individuals have the ability to maybe not do that old job that was there, but to work with the AI and the automations that there. And Medtronics programs have been a big thing in the community college system and the tech school system with manufacturers. Maybe you have robots and machines doing the work that an individual you do, but you still need the people to work on those robots and machines and to program them. And so I think we're going to continue to see automation kind of work its way into where right now it's a very non-traditional area where you got a lot more manual labor required, and that's going to be huge.
I would agree with you that I think people are instrumental. We're in a people business. Every business is a people business. And as long as we're taking care of our people and kind of positioning them the right way, we're going to be okay. Okay, so here's some of the fun questions, rapid fire. What's your favorite sports team?
New York Yankees.
Okay, God bless America. I love that. Favorite band?
Oh, I like everything from Sinatra to Taylor Swift. In the middle is probably Fleetwood Mac, probably.
Okay, I like that. What's the skill that you think every student should learn before they graduate?
Well, I'm a big fan of fail fast, learning how to fail and recover from it. I think sometimes when we go through the education system, it's all about success. But when you get in the real world, there's a lot of failures. I tell people probably half of the decisions I make are the wrong ones, but it's a matter of adjusting from those decisions. Right. And in today's environment, the students are also going to have to learn, like I said, how to communicate and work amongst teams in a virtual environment.
If you were going to offer an academic major that you think was really important to everyone, right? It's kind of based on what you just said a little bit, but like if you could kind of create your own major that you think every student could benefit from, like what might that look like?
Oh, that every student could benefit from. I would say probably the best thing that they could benefit from is being a leader without having management responsibility, right? I think every employee, when they enter an organization and work for an organization, is a leader of that organization. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a manager or they have people reporting to them.
Right.
So how you as an individual or a leader, how you impact that business. Some of the best businesses you see have a profit-sharing program or employee-owned business at ESOP, and those employees have realized that they are individual leaders helping that organization, even though they may not have a traditional quote-unquote leadership role or management role.
I love that. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. We're really lucky to have you. Your energy, your acumen, your view of all the different things that we can do across Connecticut together to make the state stronger is really an immeasurable asset, and we're really fortunate to have you in this leadership role. Well, thanks for tuning in to Office Hours. I'm Terrence Cheng, Chancellor of the CSCU system. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and listen in to future episodes where we discuss the importance of higher education and why higher education should be a part of Connecticut's growth strategy with state and business leaders and students, administrators, faculty, and staff.